Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back
to the podcast. Bro, that was such an NPC. So welcome back to the podcast. Before we begin, I'll just start us off with a dua. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri. Wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Amma ba'd. So how's life been, Eeman?
It's been good, really busy. This time of term is always really, really busy. And I feel like I've just been spending so long at my computer. I'm sick of it. How about you? What have you been up to?
Not much, honestly. I'm not as far into my term as you are. But I've picked up reading a lot more. Yeah. I put on reading, like, I used to read a lot, and then I think I, falsely convinced myself that I have no time for it. But after I picked it up, I realized it's so beneficial to read. I have a recommendation.
I actually don't have a recommendation because I found out after recording that book was actually by a Zionist. So don't cancel me. Eeman has some nice recommendations though.
I just finished reading The Very Giant, which is it's fiction. I don't really know how to describe it, and I feel like it's one of those books where you'd probably best walk into without knowing much about it. And then I've also just picked up The Map of Knowledge, which is about 7 cities across history that sort of had education and knowledge as a cornerstone of their society.
That's really nice.
It's really well written. My loan is expiring for it. So
I guess you're saying that.
Yeah. But also I've also picked up The Crucible of Islam. Also very good.
That sounds really good. Yeah. Inshallah. I'll look into these books because they sound interesting. But the main reason I picked up reading was because during holidays and whatnot, I always thought I had so much time, I have control over this time. I can spend a little bit doom scrolling and whatnot. But then I look at my screen time and it's not how I thought. So I was I kind of need to reshape what I have.
See those numbers and it immediately shocks you because you're like,
what do you mean? I did
not.
An hour?
Not that much of my week is not gone into my phone.
No, actually, but it's actually shocking because
it's crazy.
I turned my screen time off last year because I knew there's no I don't want to see those numbers. But then I turned it on. It's you come to realize you really don't have the control you think you do. And I guess that kind of segues us into the broader topic for today's podcast, which will be on the test of freedom. And to delve into this topic, we will be joined by Sister Ramia.
Sister Ramia always has amazing things to say. And I think if I were you, I'd get a notepad out, start taking notes. It's going to be really good, inshallah.
Yeah. Buckle yourself into your seat.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster. Get ready, guys.
Yeah. All right.
I'm going to stop the recording now.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri. Wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. So, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today we are joined with Sister Ramia, who you should all know, but just so Sister Ramia can introduce herself, do you want to go ahead?
Oh, Assalamu alaikum. Jazakumullah khair for having me and for taking initiative to have, I guess, raw conversations outside of a university setting. I think it's really important. So I am a lawyer by profession. I run my own legal practice along with 2 other partners, Lawbridge lawyers. I'm a wife and a mother. I was born in Australia of Palestinian and Lebanese descent. And I do a lot of community-based work. So I'm on the board of the Australia-Palestine Advocacy Network, APAN. I am also on the executive committee of the Gaza Children's Fund and Charity Right Australia. And I run various study circles and halaqat. That's a bit about myself.
Very nice, mashallah. So today for everyone, our podcast will be centered about the test of freedom. And just to start it off today, Sister Ramia, we're going to ask you how our society normalizes the right to do what we want whenever we want, but in Islam, freedom seems to have a different purpose. So how would you define freedom through the lens of Islam?
I mean, I guess this is the part where we really need to acquaint ourselves with ourselves, knowing ourselves, and what our purpose is, and what we are comprised of, and so forth. For many of us, we tread, I guess, this earth with this idea that we are merely just a physical presence. It is just our body or our jasad that is, I guess, navigating through this dunya. But we are more than that. We have this notion of a ruh, we have a nafs, we have a intellect, a aql, and obviously a physical presence and so forth. When we know ourselves from that perspective or that lens, we would come to realize that ultimately our freedom is one that is going to be centered around being a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Because this dunya was never actually created for complete happiness or uninterrupted happiness. It was never created for just fulfilling our worldly desires and so forth. And hence, when you have those, I guess, moments of unhappiness or lows and so forth, we question our ultimate what is it that we are so much obsessing with, rather than connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and so forth. We are consuming ourselves with this connection to the dunya. So we are not saying at all disconnect from the world and from the dunya, and hence the dua of the Prophet, peace be upon him. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Oh Allah, grant us what is good in this life, what is good in the next life, and keep us away from the fire of hell. Meaning we yearn and ask for the best of worlds, the best of two and both worlds, but we don't want to become overly obsessed and attached to this dunya. And it's very hard, right? It's very hard because the noise that we keep getting from the external world beyond us is that, live life to the max. This notion of being individualistic, egoistic, it's all about me. This notion of self-sacrifice is non-existent and so forth. So it's conflicting, right? So we are at times given this mixed message that in order for you to be happy, you need to live life to the max, whatever it is you desire, get. Whereas Islam tells us the complete opposite. And hence, when you do uncover that I guess the fruits of connecting and only being attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything else seems mediocre and irrelevant or petty. So yes, the misconception is that when you are servant of Allah or of God or of your religion, you are ultimately restricted and shackled. But you would come to realize, in fact, when you unpack the ethos of our deen and what it is centered around, that actually this is ultimate freedom. It is freedom from the shackles of this dunya and submitting to capitalism, consumerism, materialistic things that we are so often attached to and consumed by.
I would add also, especially for people of our age, when you're moving into university or you're moving through university, there's such a huge focus on kind of getting to do what you want. And a lot of the times those ideas are so materialistic or like focused on really, really hit or miss metrics in the dunya. I'll get my degree, I'll do this, I'll do that. And they're not often sort of involved in the idea of actually learning about who you are as a person.
Yep.
Exploring that.
Absolutely. And there's this illusion, right? Like we are brought up in a society, unfortunately, whereby there's this illusion of freedom, in that, freedom is travel and eat endlessly, consume what you want, choose the most befitting lifestyle and so forth. But all these I call these fleeting moments, right? They're not permanent, and even this notion of happiness, actually, happiness in and of itself is not eternal. It is not something that you will experience and endure for the rest of your life. They are very fleeting. So you may feel happy and a bit satisfied when you submit to these illusions of freedom, as we call them here in this dunya, but then they go, right? They disappear, and then you go back into the, I guess, the moments of sadness and heaviness and so forth. But again, knowing your purpose and aligning that purpose with absolutely everything that you do allows you, it's almost like a fortifier, it's a protector, it's a protective mechanism to ensure that you are not attaching yourself unreasonably to this dunya. SubhanAllah, only yesterday I was doing a presentation on the human faculties and this concept of the nafs and so forth. And, again, because we live in a society whereby debt is encouraged. So this notion of afterpay, right? Mm-hmm. If you desire this thing that you cannot afford, it's okay. Buy it and pay later. This encouragement to fulfill the nafs, whatever you feel like. If you walk in through the shopping center and you smell the aroma of Cinnabons or coffee, just get it. There's no disciplining of the nafs, right? Mm-hmm. So every so often, even if you can afford it, even if you can access that very thing that you sort of lock your eyes on, say no to yourself. At times you need to discipline yourself and say no, because you're right. And as you navigate through adulthood, you're at this sensitive age. As you age even more, that becomes even more difficult, because you feel like, when you're a child, you at least have parents that control your inputs, right? Yes or no. Mum, can I buy this? No. But when you're an adult, you're your own self. You have autonomy. You're free. That's going to be the difficult one. So making sure that you're also around the right people to ground you, to tell you, no, actually.
Sorry, I was saying, with regards to that, we were talking about doom scrolling earlier, and how it's so easy to just be on social media and be like looking through everything. And it's just like that constant validation and addiction, whatever you want to call it. But it's just a constant stream of things that have been more or less tailored to you.
Yeah. And it's taking you into this fake world, right? Mm-hmm. Because social media is a fake, it's an illusion, it's delusional, it's not real. There are a lot of realities that are masked by people who are presenting the best of their lives, whereas when you really know this person or these people, you realize they're struggling. So it's a dangerous world, and I fear the future even more. I mean, when I was your age or growing up, even I didn't have access to that, and it was a different sort of there were different struggles and challenges, but these ones are very difficult because we're bringing them into our homes, into our room, and we are made to feel like the grass is greener on the other side, because that's the illusion that we're given. But in fact, everyone is struggling in some way or another.
Yeah. So, and I find these days when you're like scrolling through and then you come up on those videos that people are sharing of Palestine, of the things that are happening there, it's so incredibly jarring, but such an important reminder, because, well, I mean, I would love for you to expand a bit more on this, but we have a responsibility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the blessings that we are given and for the things that we are afforded in our lives, and to the ummah as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we without doubt, if we're talking within the context of Palestine and Gaza in particular, are probably at a point where we're feeling somewhat helpless, almost debilitated, and this notion of despair. We're going around in circles. We're doing everything that we possibly can to change the direction that this genocide has been unfolding and taken. But at the very least, if you've lost all hope, this is what I was actually talking about yesterday. If you've lost all hope and you've done everything you possibly can, you've donated the money, you've written to your local members of parliament, you've gone to your protests, you've done everything you possibly can, and you're almost exhausted. Okay, maybe start to shine the light on yourself. Start to look at yourself, right? And start to conduct what we call this notion of muhasaba and muraqaba, self-interrogation and self-observation. And hold yourself to account for how it is that I can improve myself as a believer, as a Muslim who has responsibilities first and foremost to my Creator, but also then to my creation. And shed some light on the very things that we have maybe neglected in and within ourselves. So, for example, again, our nafs, what are we doing with that? How are we ensuring when we watch videos of Palestinians starving inside of Gaza, not even having access to bread for a whole, week or longer, and we are indulging endlessly in food, or we are throwing food to waste and so forth. How are we questioning our actions and ourselves as a response to what we are seeing on the other side of the world? And everything that we do here has a direct impact. I keep, this example that I use, subhanAllah, in my travels to Al-Quds and Masjid Al-Aqsa specifically, when we'd visit locals there. And there was one particular brother who'd said to us when I'd asked, what can we do for you? How can we help the people of Palestine further in their cause and the movement? And he said, don't forget about us, keep visiting us. And also, remind the Ummah to rectify its condition and its state, because the Aqsa is the thermometer of the Ummah. When the Ummah is at its peak in terms of Iman, you see victory in Al-Aqsa. When the Ummah is at its weakest in terms of Iman, it is in defeat. And there's so much truth to that. So absolutely, yes, we are scrolling through our social media. We are probably becoming desensitized to what it is that we can possibly do more. But when you feel like you've lost absolutely every inch of hope in terms of contribution or progress, maybe now start to shine the light on yourself, right? And see how it is that you can repair your condition, your state. What's your connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looking like? How can I ensure that my grounded and unfettered connection in Allah will strengthen this notion of tawakkul and trust, and this notion of accepting the qadar of Allah and the hikmah. There is absolute hikmah in what we are seeing. We may not know it, but there is definitely and without doubt hikmah in what we are seeing unfold on the other side of the world. But it needs to prompt us to take action and to do something with it, inshallah.
So you talk about disciplining ourselves and accountability, responsibility. How do you think that's viewed in the secular world, or like in the Western world?
I mean, look, again, the Western world, I feel, pushes this agenda or message that it's all about you. It's all about me and I and my well-being, and blocking out anything that may be toxic or anything that may compromise my well-being. And it almost drives a person to a point of isolation, and subhanAllah, that is a complete conflict with our deen. Our deen is exactly the opposite. It's about community, it's about congregation, it's about doing things in the jama'ah, in the majority. It actually works against what the West propagates. And not at all are we saying, obviously, the two cannot be reconciled. Yes, they can be reconciled, but ultimately this idea of self-sacrifice to some extent is an unknown in secular, I guess, conversations and so forth, unless you have this sort of activist heart or mindset, and you are involved in fights for justice and so forth. It's a completely different story. But when you unpack the general framework and mindset of the secular world, it's all about it's all about me, it's about my family, making sure that we are wealthy, we are eating the best food, we are living the best life, and it's okay, everyone else, it's me, myself, and I. Whereas Islam actually, if your own neighbor goes to sleep without having food to fill their stomach, you have a responsibility towards. So Islam is very much different in that it's all about ensuring that yes, you do ensure that you are giving yourself the haqq and the right that it is deserving and obligated to, but you also have a responsibility, by sequence of an order, to your family, then your community and society, and then the ummah. You can't just disconnect completely.
Absolutely. And while we were talking about that, the phrase financial freedom popped into my mind, and how it's I understand it to some extent, but I find that it can be a little bit misleading in the sense that at what stage would you consider yourself financially free?
because then you can just keep setting that goal further and further, and you kind of never end up getting to it.
Yeah. I mean, you can be financially free even when you are poor and, you know, and again, because that's what this capitalist society sort of advocates for or encourages. Again, having a credit card and afterpay and all of that, it encourages this notion that you have, the moment you're an adult and have access to a credit card, you can do whatever you want with it. Doesn't matter if you adopt debt by the time you're 18, 19, that's okay. Whereas Islam is different. Islam and this notion of zakat, right? Just zakat in and of itself as being a pillar compels you to, ensure that you detach from your wealth. It compels you to question what it is you are spending on. Am I spending on unnecessary, purposeless things that does not does not progress me to my ultimate destination, which is Jannah. So zakat being a fard and a pillar is actually rahmah for us, because if you were just expected to pay sadaqah, I don't know how much sadaqah we'd be paying. Whereas this mandatory tax that we've been imposed, 2.5% of your wealth, right? That is accumulative wealth that's been sitting there. You must pay a tax on. The objective of that is to remind you, actually, you don't have absolute freedom over your wealth. And this is during your life and even after death, right? I mean, in my practice as a estate lawyer and wills and estate planning, that's another reminder in that Islam is one of the only scriptures that caps and limits your complete testamentary freedom. So when you come to write your will, I can't just decide I want to give my wife or my husband this, my child this. There are set shares that Allah has commanded in the Quran, and you only have a freedom over 1/3 of your estate or over your wealth. And what that does, even though the secular world, subhanAllah, I did a thesis on a comparative between Australian inheritance laws and the Islamic inheritance law. And even though the Western world sort of implies that the Muslim inheritance code is very oppressive and limited and restrictive, you come to realize it's fair, because what the Islamic inheritance code does, it strips away the emotions that may be involved. So, for example, if you don't visit me for Christmas this year, I'm going to exclude you from my will, right? And what happens is you die, and then the beneficiary that you've excluded decides to take that will to court and challenge it, potentially rendering that will void, and then that beneficiary ends up getting something that you did not intend, right? What Islam does, it says it doesn't matter what your emotions are. You have a financial obligation to these primary beneficiaries, being your wife or your husband, your parents, your children. Pay them what you want. But as to 1/3, you can do whatever you want with it. You can give it sadaqah jariyah. You can do whatever you want. So Islam is constantly grounding us, constantly, to detach from this halal aspect of wealth. Wealth is not haram, unless you've obviously obtained it by haram means, but it's halal. Al-malu wal-banun, they're halal. Money and children are halal as long as you've obtained them by halal means, but they become a fitna on you if you overly attach yourself to them. And through zakat, and through the set inheritance codes that we have after death, we are reminded time and time again that you are not in control of your wealth. It's not yours. So it's very different to the Western, I guess, mindset of financial freedom that we otherwise are told about.
So if we as Muslims in this society, so Western society, if we want to maximize our faith and strengthen our deen, can we truly separate ourselves from the lens that's been put in place to do so?
I mean, can you separate, I guess, as a Muslim from Western influence? Absolutely. Like, if you want to absolutely separate, no, you cannot. It's almost impossible to completely separate. We live in a Western framework, so you need to adopt and adapt to ways and methods to ensure that you reconcile the two in some way or another. How do you do that? So what we're saying is, you are not necessarily accepting everything that comes with what the Western world is proposing, but you are respecting what it may have. Meaning, it doesn't mean I have to conform to it, unless it's obviously law, it's a different story. But if we're talking values and principles and practice of faith and religion, I don't have to surrender to what the trend is, right? Because I have my core values that are dictating otherwise what I need to uphold. And we see it, subhanAllah, within our, education institutions. We see it within our, like your university settings, right? You're in a university setting. I'm sure there is things around you that could otherwise be in direct conflict with your Islam and with your values and so forth. But you have found a way to reconcile that. You formed a MSA, for example. You have formed study circles. You have formed platforms to allow people who are like you to come together and be able to comfortably and safely, talk about things that are relevant and relate to you. And the list goes on. Same with work and so forth. So you can't expect to live in a complete isolated bubble. You are here in Australia or in the United States or in the UK, wherever it is, whatever Western world. You can't sit in a corner somewhere and only be a Muslim. You have to be a active citizen of whatever country you are. And there are absolutely ways in which you can reconcile the two, as long as you are firm and grounded in your core beliefs and values. So that comes also with age, right? And with religious grounding, meaning where I am now is not where I was 20 years ago. So for example, I do not shy away now from refusing to shake the hand of the opposite gender, whoever it may be, whether it is a judge, a barrister, the Prime Minister or an MP. I don't care. I make it very clear that I do not shake hands, and I have to explain at times why. I may have been shy to do that 20 years ago, right? So we're not expecting you to take those leaps of faith, as we call it, immediately, but they come and they're a work in progress. So you begin to adapt ways, hijab is a good example as well. I confidently wear my hijab now. Very different to when I was wearing it in my teenage years and my early adult years and so forth. This is who I am. It's uncompromised. I do not shy away from avoiding settings that have alcohol, for example, now. So these things, you end up, and I realize the more honest you are about your values without compromise, with respect, obviously, to colleagues and so forth, the more you gain their respect. So you don't have to sort of tiptoe around and walk on eggshells as to why it is that for example, you've got colleagues that meet up for Friday night drinks, and you tiptoe around every Friday, and, oh no, I've got this on and I'm busy. And you don't just simply say, actually, I don't go to settings that have alcohol, and then they actually respect you more, because you may have some tension and challenges with one or two people, but the majority will be like, oh, I didn't know that. And then you have a conversation around that. So sometimes honesty is your best way to ensure that you can reconcile your two lifestyles without compromise.
And I think, sorry, just to add, another huge aspect of that is being able to explain why you're doing these things without coming off as condescending or, kind of making it sound really self-absorbed. But do you have any tips for sort of solidifying that mindset and being able to work towards explaining to people why we do the things that we do?
Okay, so it's always a very good answer. And question. So let's use one example. For example, why do you wear hijab, right? And I've realized in my years of, I guess, engagements, interactions, and so forth, again, saying things as they are without the need to justify initially makes your life easier. So when you are asked why you wear hijab, we tend to find some very, funny reasons as to why we wear it, to try to connect with the other side. So for example, it protects my hair from the sun. It protects my skin from the sun. It covers my beauty. But you don't realize that every single response that you may have may actually be negated. So when you say it covers my beauty, you may have the response, but you look beautiful. Like, you're still very attractive. You're visibly beautiful. And hijab has not covered your beauty unless you're possibly going to wear niqab, right? Possibly. So everything that you may propose, why do you avoid alcohol? Because, it causes, according to studies, it causes damage to your brain, and it affects your liver and whatever. Fine. But to me, they're all secondary reasons. So now when I'm asked, and I try to tell, I've got 3 girls, by the way, and I try to sort of push this sort of response. When you are asked anything of the sort as to why it is you do anything, you know, for whatever reason as a Muslim, why do you pray 5 times a day? Why do you wear hijab? Why do you not drink alcohol? Why do you avoid pork and bacon products and so forth? It is because God told me to. And as a Muslim, I have subscribed to the religion of Islam, and these are the terms that I have signed up to. These are the conditions that I've signed up to. Nobody's forced me to be Muslim. I've chosen to be Muslim. And these are the rules that come with it. Like when you go and sign up to a golf club or to a gym or whatever, there are terms and conditions to the membership, right? Islam is exactly the same. You don't question, why is this rule in place in this gym? You know, why does this golf course? It's because they told you to, and that's it. I've signed up to it. And Islam is exactly the same. So when you are honest to that extent, in that, why is it that you do what you are doing? It's because God told me to, and I have subscribed to the religion of Islam, and these are the terms and conditions that come with it. And also, by the way, these are the secondary reasons why I do the A, B, and C. And you can use all the scientific proofs and references to whatever it is that you want to present, but they can always be challenged. But nobody can challenge you for accepting to follow and obey God's words. That's your freedom. That's your free will. I've freely chosen. You can't force me to not listen to God. I've chosen to listen to God. You can't stop me. So it's something that cannot be challenged per se.
Absolutely. I think my go-to as well is like it's for taqwa. Like you attain a sort of God consciousness.
Yep.
You have a self-awareness about the things that you're doing. It's a constant reminder that you are Muslim.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, yes, obviously you can go as far as to explain that, but you know, at the baseline, I just find that that's always going to be the easiest reason. Then you obviously delve into the deeper objectives and reasons as to why you do what you are doing.
And so with regards to like introspection and taking those steps to understand ourselves, what are some things that we can actively do in the world that we are in to attain that?
I guess, I mean, look, it's very important to reflect on, you know, as I noted earlier, the faculties that we possess, right? So whether it's the body, the ruh, the nafs, the qalb, and the aql, right? So the intellect, the heart, the soul, nafs, the ruh being the spirit, and the body. These are faculties that we hold and possess. And it's very important, more than anything, to ensure, I think, throughout the span of our lives, to align those very faculties to end up in that state that we were born in, which is that fitrah state, right? Ultimately, we were born with an ala fitrat al-Islam, and we want to pass away and die ala fitrat al-Islam. That's the objective. The thing that corrupts those very faculties are environments and exposure to corruption and fitna and so forth. One of the most important faculties, all of them are, but the critical one is that heart, the qalb, right? And Allah says that nothing is going to matter on the Day of Judgment except those who face Allah with a sound heart, qalbun salim, right? A sound heart. And there are many poisons that are around us that corrupt that heart. So your question is what can we do to ensure that we are, I guess, you know, aligning ourselves to that particular direction and grounding ourselves and so forth. So you need to question environments and ask yourself, you know, what is it that every time I do good. So for example, I've prayed my prayers, I've read my Quran, I have even gone up for qiyam. That's all great. It's easy to build your spiritual jug and to fill it up, but how do you retain it? So it's about protecting your heart from the poisons. And if you reflect on Ibn al-Qayyim's poisons of the hearts, they're actually very basic. You would never sort of imagine that, you know, they're in fact poisons of the heart. But one of them is unnecessary talking, right? So unnecessary talking is one poison of the heart. So hence, when you are in gatherings and settings, what are you actually talking about? Are you talking about people? Are you backbiting, gossiping, or are you talking about, you know, justice and how to address the oppression around the world and what is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is not? We're not saying don't talk about fashion and where you got a bargain. We're not saying that. Don't talk about uni, but question. You know, we talked about taqwa. This is taqwa. You are conscious of Allah in even what setting you are in and what you are talking about. So unnecessary talking is one. Unrestrained glances is another one. And this is really important for us as women, because we tend to focus this concept of lower your gaze. We focus it to the brothers. Lower your gaze, brother. You know, watch what you are looking at. You know, nod your head down. But it's this is the shaitan of today, the phone. Where we have access to, and we're literally doom scrolling what is coming up on your social media. And I'm talking as women. When you come across that female figure who has a flawless body, right, with nothing to fault whatsoever, in minimal clothes, where her aura is undoubtedly exposed, are you lowering your gaze as a female? And the other way around, even towards a male, are you lowering your gaze? So we're exposed to constant filth, even in our private spaces. I'm not talking outside. Like, you step outside, that's even worse. But I'm talking in our private spaces, we are exposed to filth. And are you protecting? Because don't forget, your eyes are a window to your heart. That's, you know, according to Ibn al-Qayyim, subhanAllah. So are we fortifying our heart from that? So unrestrained glances or lowering your gaze is another one. The third is overeating and overindulging is a poison of the heart, because ultimately what you are doing is you are literally feeding that nafs. You are giving it whatever it desires. You are fulfilling any whim it wants. I smell this food. Even if you are at your, you know, full capacity in terms of eating, you still want more. And what that does is it triggers laziness. We know this in Ramadan, when you've had a food coma after iftar, and like, you know what, I might just pray Tarawih at home today because I can't breathe, or I may not just pray at all. So overeating has a direct impact on your himma, your motivation, right? And it affects your worship. You're not going to be bothered. And what it does also is it creates this element of greed in you. I shared a report, a video of a American congressman interrogating a United States head or lead of aid distribution. And there's a particular asset that the United States had spent millions of dollars on, which is a biscuit, whereby if you eat it, it has enough, you know, nourishment in it to keep you sustained for 2 or 3 days, right? It's an asset that they spent millions of dollars on. And they had enough of these biscuits to feed 27,000 children in Gaza for 1 month. For 1 month. So this Senate inquiry happened a few days ago. Now, the United States received notification and a reminder, by the way, this asset is due to expire in July of this year, right? So this congressman is interrogating the aid lead, and he said, even the World Health Organization stepped in and offered to purchase this asset and distribute it to Palestinians inside of Gaza, and particularly children and the weak and the vulnerable. And the United States refused. And they, you know what they ended up doing with this asset? They ended up burning it, right? They ended up burning it. So he's being interrogated. How is this relevant? How it's relevant is that we have enough food, I'm talking, to ensure that there is no such thing as poverty even anywhere around the world. Outside of Gaza, Gaza is not a poverty-stricken country, nation, by the way. It has always been thriving, but there is a forced starving of a population. It's very different. But let's talk in Africa and parts of the world that we know that poverty has always been something that's almost normal. We have enough food across the entire world to be able to share that, right? But because we are so greedy and wanting to indulge, we would rather throw food in the bin than give it away to those who need it. That's triggered this notion of greed in us. So overeating at times causes you to become desensitized, in a sense where you just eat purposelessly, right? Without any why are we meant to eat, by the way? Why do we eat as humans?
To sustain ourselves.
To keep us alive.
Yeah.
To keep us alive. That's it. We're not supposed to binge and eat unnecessarily. And there's even prophetic advices as to how we are meant to eat and how we are meant to fill our stomachs and so forth. So overeating is also a poison on the heart. And the last one, this is the most important one, and I say specifically to young people, but even to older, is one of the poisons of the heart is keeping bad company. keeping bad company, because you could be doing everything there is to do that is good and grounding, but then be in a circle that is very spiritually toxic, and you are inevitably going to be pulled away. Hence your mission in life, if you are in a toxic work environment that you have no choice to stay in, you can't, it's your livelihood, you have to stay working there. Say you are in a toxic uni environment, you can't quit uni, you have to push through, right? Your task then becomes to seek out circles that offer you compensation for those environments. So lock yourself into and commit yourself to some sort of a halaqah on a weekly level, a course, a gathering, a lecture, and it's still not enough, because the amount of fitna that we are facing day in, day out by the hour, by the time you honestly exit your musalla after Salatul Duhur during uni, your spiritual jug is going to be emptied out because of the fitna that's outside of that door. So at the bare minimum, you need and have a responsibility to seek out circles that offer you a compensation, I guess, for those spiritually toxic environments, and have good company that will hold you to account, that will pull you in the direction that you are supposed to be pulled. Without these things, it's almost impossible to expect to be grounded and firm in your values and detach from those, I guess, again, illusions of freedom that we are otherwise told about from a secular or Western perspective.
I have a question. So you say to distance from bad company. And what if that, not company per se, but what if your parents are people that are kind of half in, half out with religion, in the sense that, say, for example, your parents restrict you from dressing super modestly in this chance that it kind of falls back on you in terms of opportunities, etc. So they're doing it out of goodwill for you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So you
I
cannot.
think that's
Sorry, no, go.
I was going to say that's a super common rhetoric in a lot of South Asian households.
Yeah.
I know when I started wearing the hijab, a lot of people had things to say to my mom about how like I was too young to be wearing it, or like I live like in the West, so I don't need to wear it. Just really, really harmful rhetoric as well.
Absolutely. So you cannot obviously cull or disconnect from your parents. You cannot cull or disconnect from siblings and family members over your religious sort of path and trajectory. So when you are, and not everyone's going to be on the same journey. Everyone's on the journey a different way. And I always say, especially with these types of settings, they're very sensitive. You need to be the best person that you can possibly be through your character and akhlaq, no matter what. Because the last thing you want is, just because you're heading on a religious path, to be told, and let's say you're now becoming bad and rude to those who matter, just because you're becoming more religious, the last thing you want to hear is, oh, now that you're religious, you think you're better than us, you're a sheikha, you're a sheikh, and you hear these comments, right? So you need to sort of balance and juggle the two and ensure that you are not doing opposite to what you are expected to do. How I work around those is you obviously, try your best, and we're talking parents specifically. You don't want to upset them. You don't want to sort of, unless it gets to a matter of safety and your well-being, I'm talking safety, it's a different story. But if there are comments here and there and that struggle and tug of war every so often about what you wear and where you're going, and it's good stuff, it's not bad. It's not like, they're stopping you from going to bad and harmful settings. You respect them, and you need, again, to seek out your village and build that village outside of that setting. So meaning, you can't cull your parents, you can't disconnect from them and isolate from them. You maintain the respect with them and so forth, but then you build a village outside of your home that is going to offer you that support no matter what, when it comes to, religious ventures and direction and so forth. So being around like-minded sisters who are on the same journey and so forth. So it's hard, it's very hard. And slowly, inshallah, and I say this particularly to reverts because, they're dealing with even a much more difficult situation. Your da'wah to your family, you can't make da'wah by saying and telling them to become Muslim. It's not going to work. Your da'wah is through your akhlaq, your character, right? And how it is that I react and respond and my dealings with them. That's what's going to drive and pull people potentially to Islam. And on this topic anyway, if your parents have this spark of, they're good people, right? Like they do believe obviously in the importance of being spiritually grounded. Just remind them of the notion of rizq, right? In that, just because I put hijab on, it's not going to limit my rizq. My rizq is going to come no matter what, whether it's marriage rizq, whether it's worldly, employment rizq, financial rizq. If you put hijab on, you can never become a practicing doctor, for example, or you're going to have limited opportunities to become a lawyer. How? If I have yaqeen and certainty that Allah, who is Al-Razzaq, the provider, will give me what is apportioned to me, no matter what, because what I'm doing is pleasing to Him. I'm doing and sacrificing what I am, what I can for His pleasure. He's not going to forsake me. He's going to reward me in a way that is better. And if you can have those conversations respectfully, sometimes we need to be the reminder to our parents. And if you can do that, then, obviously go ahead.
Okay, just to conclude then, because I know you have also granted us so much of your time and we really appreciate it. Jazakallah khairan.
Cool.
When it comes to viewing freedom, how can we reshape the narrative for Muslims, especially Muslims at university, so that we understand like our Islamic priorities and we're able to reshape our lives to fit those?
Okay. So just repeat the question. Sorry, I felt like it was a statement more than a question. Sorry.
How can we reclaim what freedom means to Muslims?
Okay. Firstly, the way that you can reclaim it is by being around people who are, on the same mindset. So meaning, if you are not around your community, if you are not around people who are working towards that same goal, working towards that same purpose, it's going to be very difficult. That's the first, right? It's almost like fighting a battle on your own. And there is always power and strength in being around people who are like you. That's the first. The second is that I guess we need to live by purpose. We have to live by purpose. We can't just live, do something because it feels right, right? And this is where intention comes in. That's what makes things unique for us as Muslims. Everything that we do has to have an intention and a purpose. Even you going to university, me coming to work, me waking up every day and packing lunch boxes before I go to work, whatever it is. Why am I doing what I am doing? And is this specific action going to free my nafs and please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So living by purpose and with purpose is very important when it comes to reclaiming, I guess, this notion and concept of freedom. The other thing is that, community is critical. I cannot reinforce this notion of community, but make worship almost like an act of rebelling against the status quo. So I'll give you an example. In the past, I'd be very shy and reserved about where I'd pray. Like, for example, we're at a park and, Dhuhr time came and I need to pray, or my family needs to pray. And obviously, other than being exposed, I don't want to be bending over and people see me. I have to find a suitable spot. But generally, I used to be a bit cautious and conscious. Oh, no, they're going to look at us and think we're weird, we're bowing, we're doing weird stuff, whatever. But I'm now in a state where I actually don't care. I'm not going to go and pray in the middle of a park and, call everyone out and say, hey, look what I'm doing, or go pray in the middle of a pub or a club and say, hey, look, I'm a Muslim. No. What I mean by rebellion is that be unapologetically Muslim and be proud of it. And don't be shy about praying publicly when you need to pray in Jama'ah if you have to. Don't be shy about saying, no, I don't do A, B, and C because it goes against my religious values. Wear your hijab proud and don't submit and surrender to the trends, I guess. that are otherwise coming out to dilute what hijab actually means. So yes, you know, you see many sisters, mashallah, wearing hijab, but almost without purpose. And if you wear hijab with purpose, you know, you will be able to wear it properly and modestly. It's no longer about just putting it on for the sake of it. I'm wearing hijab because it is what pleases Allah. It is what Allah told me to do. And look, yeah, I mean, it's not really a raw, you know, it is a raw conversation, but it's a public one. But I don't believe when people tell me, and look, I'm in my 40s now, but I don't believe when people tell me that, you know, wearing hijab is amazing, and you know, it makes me feel great and it's so easy. No, it's not. It's not. Okay, hijab is not easy. Hijab is not easy. It's a struggle. It's jihad. It's very difficult, right? Let's be real here. It doesn't necessarily make me feel amazing. No, it does not, right? I'm doing it because Allah told me to do it, and I have to do it. I'm not doing it out of hate, though. I did it, you know, we're doing it voluntarily, and because we want to gain the rewards that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised us. But we have to be real here. It's not easy, right? It is jihad, and it's not easy even to, at times, have to pray 5 times a day. It's not easy to fast a whole month of Ramadan for some people. It's not easy to pay zakat for some people, right? But this is our jihad. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to do so. So when I say make worship, I guess almost an act of rebellion, in that we're not trying to you know, turn Australia into a Sharia-driven country or a continent. More so, what we are saying is be a proud Australian Muslim who is unapologetic and unashamed of what your deen and religion tells you to do, right? So that's one. And the other one is perhaps, I guess, speak and live Islam with this unfettered conviction, right? Meaning, you need to sort of reject the trends that come out that are in direct conflict with your religiosity, no matter what. You have to reject it. You have to feel an element of disgust inside and you know, this discomfort. You have to feel it. And you don't need to, at all times, justify why it is you are doing what you are doing. Sometimes you will realize that actually this particular person or this particular setting, I cannot necessarily have to, I'm not going to explain myself because they're here for a debate and I'm not here for a debate. I don't need to, right? And what's interesting is, subhanAllah, you see in settings, people wearing the most bizarre outfits, the most weirdest of looks, and, you know, they identify as a cat today, and it's okay. But I, as a Muslim, am expected, as a visibly Muslim female, I'm expected to explain myself. Why? Why am I expected to explain myself? So don't feel like you have to always, you know, speak to people who, you know, I guess, question your beliefs and so forth, but rather just live as a Muslim is supposed to live, meaning with your akhlaq, with your manners, as long as you are respectful, and you have those core values such as honesty, integrity, and respect, and ensuring that your relationship with the creation is just as important as your relationship with the creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Absolutely. I think there's a paper by Yaqeen Institute that also encompasses all of that really well. It's about establishing and sort of solidifying your Islamic identity.
Yeah,
I will try and link it for everyone in the
absolutely.
caption as well. But definitely have a read of that if you can. It's really, really amazing in how it's worded and how it conveys the idea of establishing an Islamic identity.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess if I'm to summarize everything, because, you know, we're sort of talking about this notion of conflict between you know, religious and secular or Western lenses and frameworks around freedom and so forth. In the end, it's not necessarily about conforming. When we say we live, you know, in a Western country, we're not necessarily saying you have to conform, but you can transform. You can transform things to allow it to adjust to your own values and so forth. And you're not necessarily losing yourself in this dunya exclusively, but rather look at it as finding yourself through Allah in this dunya, right? You can do that, and you can only find Allah by knowing yourself first and foremost, and then also knowing Allah, and then knowing those who are very important to Allah, such as the Prophet, peace be upon him, and those around him. So when we say, navigating through this dunya, in the end, the only way you can ensure that you remain grounded and so forth is that you need to look for yourself, search for yourself and your purpose, by finding, yourself through the lens of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in absolutely everything that you do. And then you'll see that you navigate through this life in a very different way, in a very different manner, inshallah.
And that's probably what you would call true freedom as well.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's not in your hands.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
So just to close off, we'd love if you would just share a dua with us, specifically with regards to Palestine and Gaza, with everything that is happening.
Okay, inshallah. I'll share, I guess, something very brief in English, and then I'll close it off with something very simple. And if you can memorize this particular dua, it's a dua that I shared earlier, but it's something that I find is all encompassing, inshallah. Oh Allah, I ask that you grant the people of Palestine and Gaza the strength and the ability to get through this very difficult calamity. Oh Allah, I ask that you allow the world to see through the injustices and to free the people of Gaza and Palestine from the oppression, from the pain, from the grief, from the humiliation that they are facing, oh Allah. Oh Allah, I ask you that you send them the rizq that they have been yearning for, the rizq of food, the rizq of water, from places unimaginable to us, from places unimaginable to the enemy, from places that we never ever expected such rizq to come. Oh Allah, I ask you to accept the martyrs and the shuhada. I ask you to relieve the pain of those who have lost loved ones, and I ask that you grant them the highest of Jannat for the sacrifice that they have had to endure over the last 2 years for now, inshallah. Oh Allah, I ask you to accept our deeds and allow us to be on the right side of justice during this entire process. I ask that you accept our deeds as being enough to have been able to stand up for the injustice, that you do not side us with the tyrants at any point in time, inshallah. In terms of a dua that I think is relevant to all of us, especially as uni students and those who pursue career and so forth, it's that dua that I believe is all encompassing for this dunya and the akhirah. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Oh Allah, grant us what is best in this life, what is best in the next life, and keep us away from the fire of hell, inshallah.
Ameen. Jazakallahu khairan for that.
Jazakallah khair
It's
for the
very,
opportunity.
very insightful. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you've been very busy. I hope your travels went well.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. It feels like a dream now, but it was an amazing trip, alhamdulillah.
We really, really appreciate you coming, and we really hope that anyone listening to this benefits from it as well.
They will for sure.
Jazakallah Jazakumullah khair. Thank you, and keep doing what you guys are doing. May Allah reward you.
Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.
Take care.
Assalamu
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us in today's podcast. I'm sure it was super, super beneficial for all of you.
We hope you can take away some of those practical things and implement them into your daily lives.
Inshallah. And make sure to be there to join us for our next episode, which will inshallah be more about the community, the importance of community, and the topic of nasiha. So inshallah, whenever that comes out, it will come out. But just to wrap up, we'll just do the closing dua. So subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wal 'asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus solihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.